Oregon 30, Penn State 24. This game recap generated by Flex Power, our friends at Flex Power. Oregon flexed powerfully. I give this game 4 Chalai on the 1 to 5 scale. Double overtime game. Just offensively, just aesthetically, it's tough to watch Penn State's offense. I don't know that Penn State's going to be in many more 5 Chalai classics as long as they're doing what they're doing there. There was talk for months. This is the beautiful thing about college football. We talk and talk and talk. Fortunately, that's allowed, or else I wouldn't have a job. But you talk about this stuff in January, but then you talk about it in March. And you know these things are coming months down the road. I mean, you and I, like if you're a Penn State fan, Oregon fan, college football fan, you probably talked about the Oregon-Penn State game 1,000 times over the course of the spring and summer. The beautiful thing is all that talk leads to you on the edge of your seat for 4 hours on a Saturday night in late September. It sounds like a country song. It's so awesome. I can't overstate. This also sounds like a country song. I can't overstate how devastating last night was for Penn State. We don't talk about the losers first on the show, but I just want you to know, if you tuned in to hear my take on Penn State's loss, buddy, you will get my take on Penn State's loss. Oregon is just better. The only thing I doubted was this early in the season and all the dynamics that were against them. Could they come across the country and win this game? And not only did they win it, I know it went to double overtime, but man, they controlled this game. Quarterback, they got the better one. Skill guys, they got the better ones. Staff, they got the better one. Line of scrimmage, they won. And I may have expected to say some of that after this game. I never really expected to say all of that. And there's no added context needed. It's not like the box score lies and there's some context. You know, hey, I know Oregon looks like they won this game, but here's the way it really happened. There's none of that. In fact, I'd say the box score lies the opposite way. I didn't even feel like the game was that close. Like there's some numbers Penn State ended up putting up, and they are still pretty paltry, as Meemaw would say, but I didn't even feel like they had that many rushing yards. Like, where did Penn State find 139 rushing yards? I don't know. I have no idea. They held Penn State to 4 yards per carry in this game. And that was where Penn State had to flex. They weren't really going to flex throwing the ball. I didn't even think in a Penn State win they were going to truly flex 325 some odd yards through the air, anything like that. But, man, they just suffocated Penn State. It was tough to watch if you're a Penn State fan because you hoped in the back of your mind, you had held out hope. We played nobody so far. So, yeah, Oregon's coming to town and we respect them, but they got to deal with us too. They don't care. They dealt with you and they were fine. It's like taking your hand and putting it on the head of your much younger brother. And if you're good with balance, you can afford to take a sip of something. And he's still over here just fighting. That's what it felt like. It's so discouraging to say from a Penn State perspective, but it is so encouraging because you know if you're an Oregon fan, this is the beginning for you. Not only is it's not quite the beginning of Dan Lanning's run. I'm just talking about this team. This team is so inexperienced. They're so new. They just got put together. It's not quite like they went Texas Tech mode or anything like that. I don't mean that. I just mean Dante Moore is your new starter. And you're supposed to have a dip, by the way. You lose Dylan Gabriel. Before that, you lost Bo Nix. There's supposed to be a dip here somewhere. And it feels like they keep increasing the level of quarterback play. And it's not supposed to happen that way, guys. In case you need evidence, look at Penn State. There's no guarantee that quarterback play just continues to elevate and elevate. But I'll tell you the other thing that I took away. Lanning took a lot of heat a couple of years ago. Specifically in the first Washington game they played on the road where he went for it on some fourth downs and everyone was critical of him. Some guys say they don't care about outside noise, and they're lying to you. Other guys, like Dan Lanning, say they don't care about outside noise, and I promise you he's telling you the truth. He doesn't care about outside noise. He hears it, he just doesn't value it. And the way I know that is because after that little ordeal a couple of years ago, when everyone drug him over the coals for going for it on fourth down, even though every one of the critics had the benefit of hindsight on their side, which you don't get if you're coaching in game. They went for it on 4th down 7 times last night, and they got 5 of them. Just little old young Oregon traveling almost to Europe to play a game, basically. Just 5 of 7 on 4th down. Yeah, that's how you control a game. It's one way you control a game. This wasn't just one game. It's time we talk about Penn State for a second before I get back to Oregon. I am among the last to normally criticize James Franklin on the show, not because he never deserves criticism, because the criticism is always stupid to me. Because people can't ever just individually critique compartments. They always have to say James Franklin's trash, James Franklin's overrated, this and that, and that's always been dumb. So I never really do that. And normally I am perfectly willing and able to take a game for what it is on this show, and that is one game. This was not one game. And every Penn State fan knows it, and James Franklin knows it, and that entire staff and that athletic department knows it. A lot of the future of Penn State football, a lot of judgment about the trajectory of Penn State football was all predicated on this game. The thinking was, of course, we've got a bye week, we got home field here. They're pretty new, pretty young, pretty inexperienced. They got to fly cross country. They got to come in our building. We're off the bye. They're not. Also, we've built towards this team for multiple years. We got a third-year starter now at quarterback. We went and got the best defensive coordinator we could find in the Big Ten, and you got all that, and you just kind of get handled at home. Hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video. Point being, it's the same kind of conversation they're having at Clemson. How would you ever expect it to get better, given the current set of circumstances? Coaching staff, the way they go about their business, the way the programs run. This is the apex. Okay, this collection of talent, this team, was the pinnacle. And if you're a Penn State fan, you were totally fine looking towards this year, predicated on the fact that you win the Oregon game, and you got to get that one done because the hurdles you have not been able to clear is we don't win the big games, we can't win a national title. Well, you can't win a national title in September. You can lose one, but you can't win one in September. But the first hurdle was, all right, well, we got to win the Oregon game. Because if we got all those edges and we can't even win that game, there's no way we're going to Columbus in a couple of months and win that game. And you didn't even get it done against Oregon. And I know the score looks close. I'm normally the one who says, dude, stop speaking, in such terms of totality. The game went to overtime. One play here or there, and it could have been the difference. It should have been emphatic. This should have been a moment in time for Penn State football. This should have been a moment of arrival for James Franklin and his tenure there. It should have been a very, very red letter day. And instead, it was kind of a black Saturday. Season's not over. They'll probably still make the playoff. But if you think in terms of ever having hope that Penn State was about to do more than Penn State has done, that's dead. It feels dead. Why would I have faith? Why would any Penn State fan have faith? See, this is the part where some of the criticism that you would normally write off as insane is totally valid. Totally valid. No one up there can say that you haven't gotten full buy-in from the student body, from the fan base. They had like 500,000 people there last night. Everyone's all in. Everyone's willing to bank on this year being the year. And it's just, it was close. That's about the best you can say. It was close again. Well, they've all been close, but they hadn't gotten pushed over the finish line. The portal additions at wide receiver we were so excited about, 6 receptions for 64 yards. And Devontae Ross was really most of that. And compare that to how many easy completions Will Stein got Dante Moore. This is what hurts. This is what hurts. Because Will Stein got like a brand new quarterback dropped in his lap every year. And he took his new quarterback across the country and just put on a clinic in front of you. And then you've had your guy in the building and you're intimately familiar with him and you know everything about him and he's run your system multiple years. And it seemed like a struggle on par with watching Jimbo Fisher offenses at Texas A&M, where even when a first down pass is completed, it feels like a fight. It feels like the entire world is pushing against you, and it's such a sigh of relief just to watch a running back fall forward for 6.5 yards. Meanwhile, Will Stein is just up there playing video games against you in your own building. Dante Moore's launching a Heisman campaign against you in your own building, and your guy's 14 of 25, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. It just should be so much better than that. There's no excuse for it not to be at Penn State. So this one's different. I'm not being hyperbolic, because you guys who watch the show and listen to the show know I don't really do that. But I told you, and they knew it. I mean, I've been up there in that building the past couple of months. They knew how big this game was. I still had a little bit of hope. I picked Penn State to win the game. I had a little bit of hope in the back of my mind, maybe, just maybe. Some of the lessons I've learned in the history of this game apply here. And Penn State's looked very lethargic offensively so far, but maybe it is just a giant soda bottle that's been shaken up, and they're going to twist that cap against Oregon. It's flat. We opened it, and it turns out it's one of those commemorative Coke bottles from 1982, and it's flat. That's Penn State football. That's Penn State offense this year. There's just nothing there. Nothing more than we've seen before, maybe even less. I don't know how that's possible. I think last night's result began a new timeline for Penn State football, and I have no idea which one it is. Because it could be that it began a trajectory that ends with James Franklin not at Penn State anymore in like 3 years or something like that. And I'm not saying fired. I don't even know how it would happen. I'm speaking hypothetically. I'm just saying I could envision 3 years from now, Franklin's not there anymore, and the conversation is, this really began with that Oregon game a few years back. Nothing was ever the same after that. It could be that, but I'll tell you what else it could be. It could be that James Franklin looks himself in the mirror and says exactly what I just said. That was as good as it's going to get with my current way of doing things here. Last night was the end of James Franklin's Penn State 1.0. And tomorrow begins James Franklin Penn State 2.0. And there are only so many changes you can make during the season, but you never know if a loss like that, you never know how much he had invested into that particular game. So you never know how much that makes him look in the mirror and how much he commits to correcting 20 degrees here and shifting 5 degrees there and getting rid of this staffer and adding a new staffer and changing the way they do this and that. You never know if 3 years from now, you may be looking at James Franklin playing for a national championship and his quarterback and his offense are setting records, and you're saying this never happens if Oregon doesn't come in and really prove a point for us 3 years ago. I'm just saying, one way or another, last night began a new timetable. It began a new timeline for Penn State football. Of that, I am very confident. So Penn State, I feel differently. Oregon, I feel differently. Because this is not their ceiling. As bad as that sucks for the rest of the Big Ten to hear, last night's not their ceiling. They don't know what it is yet. I don't know what it is yet. That quarterback, that offensive line, I mean, think about the moves they had to make on offensive line and then watching those guys work last night. Remember the Evan Stewart news? Remember how Oregon, boy, they lost their best receiver. What are they going to do? They're going to play and they're going to win because it is an organization. It's a program more than a couple of individuals on a team. They're in ascension mode. I know that. So I don't know how much better that team can get, but I expect them to continue to get better.